recording. That's it, yeah. Good evening and welcome to our second part of our Grand Tour of Italy 2021. Thank you to everyone who was here for the first, but welcome, a warm welcome to everyone that did the making for the first time, and they are trying today to learn something a little bit more about Northern Italy. So there you go. Our last tour event, we spoke about Tuscany. It was great. We all know about Sangiovese now. We had a fabulous Vermentino that we really enjoyed, a Rosso di Montalcino, and you know, it was a great event. So much so that many of the people that came just for one event last time, they confirmed for all the remaining events. So, you know, thank you very much for all of you, quite a lot of you. Especially thank you to the Chiswick gang, because it looks like, where are they? Here they are, waving there. Yeah, the Chiswick gang are 7 households, is that right? 7 households in a row, plus another couple of households not far away. And what a fantastic way for all friends to be together once a week. Absolutely great, because you're not allowed to do anything else. Even if my neighbors and us, we have lots of conversation at fence point, protected by the wooden fence. Great. So yeah, thank you to the gang. Just very quickly, how this is going to happen. We have an hour in which we're going to present. I'm going to put something on screen very shortly, and we're going to present our wines. And then after 1 hour presentation, we're going to lift the microphone, we're going to close the recording, and we're going to try to have a little bit of a interaction, even if I have to say the room is pretty full. Why not? Let's see what's happening. At any point, obviously, you can go in and out as you please. We're going to use the chat for anyone that hasn't been here last time. The chat is a fantastic tool, and we got the chat in here. And in the chat, what you can do is write something to everyone or something to any particular person in the event. So I'm just gonna, hi everyone. I'm gonna start with that. You know, feel free. Any question you have during the presentation, for the fact that you obviously are muted, let's get it through the chat. And we have Paolo, who's in charge of reminding me if I miss any questions, or Imma. And between myself and Imma, we're gonna try and answer at our best. As I said, we got Marco online as well. He's the special guest of tonight, owner and a member of the Primozic family, owner of the Primozic estate in Oslavia, in Venezia Giulia, a place that is very close to me, because I come from not far away. I think it's about an hour in the car. Yes, so he's going to tell us about wine number 3, the Ribolla. We also have, before we start, a couple of birthdays to mention. We have Peter, where are you? Peter just turned about 150, 149, I think he was. Happy birthday, Peter. Happy birthday, Peter. And then we have Brian. His name is not Brian. Brian is going to be, I think, about 60 something tomorrow. Yeah, a little bit less. Sorry, Brian. Happy birthday, Brian. It's great when a little bit of presents come through in the form of virtual tasting. Who would have ever said? Excellent. Special guest. We spoke about the birthdays. Should we just get going with the wine? I'm going to share my screen. And again, it's going to take a little bit of technology to be able to do that, but I will prevail. Right, so on the top right corner, if you know into Zoom too much, there is a view, and you can sort of decide how you want to see it. Side-by-side gallery, it was what I usually do. Especially for the recording, so that we have a sensation of how we're going with the event. So, Grand Tour of Italy, Nord Italia, this is how we call it. Let's see if this is getting any better. Great. let me introduce you to our guest speakers, Imma and Paolo. Imma and Paolo are the people who helped me getting into realizing all of these virtual tasting series, and they have been an invaluable help throughout this adventure. And you know, I can't thank them enough just for the fact to be there and say, you know, we need to do this. And Imma is a sommelier. She's a senior sommelier at the Claridge's Hotel in London. As I said last time, if anybody fancy any afternoon tea, whenever this madness of COVID ends, you know who to call. Paolo is the head waiter in there. So again, somebody that, they're great wine lovers, truly passionate about Italian wines, and it's true passion that we met. Imma is an incredible student, and she's so good in learning and teaching whatever needs to be said. And I never finished to learn with you, Imma. We tasted a lot of wine in the last few weeks, and I think we should just continue through that path because it's marvelous. Good. So what we haven't done last time is to talk very briefly of things that we would love to talk about, but then we can't, because as we said, is exceptionally impossible to concentrate an entire geographic area with so many wine regions in a 1 hour conversation presenting 4 wines. I think it's just ludicrous to think that it's possible. And, you know, we always feel a little bit guilty not to include this and not to include that, because, you know, but the main objective of these virtual tasting are obviously be together virtually or not, just to have some good time, get a little bit of learning in the process, meet new people, and have a little bit of focus on our passion. So I think we achieved that in a sense, but we want from this particular event, we want to try and say things that we're not gonna talk about. We're gonna mention them. So I'm just gonna talk about a few things, and then I'm gonna pass to Imma. When we talk about northern Italy, we talk about a few things that we can't avoid to mention. Venezia, you know, probably the most romantic city in the world, one of the most beautiful settings and such a unique settings in its own. Piedmont and Piemonte, as we call it in Italy, it's a region that if we need to talk about wine, we just need to talk about Piemontese wine by itself. So we're not going to talk about them today. When we talk about northern Italy, we talk about the Alps, you know, a huge mountain chain that is sort of having a very big bracket around the boot of Italy, and it's sort of enclosing the climate of Italy in a very special way. And if there are any skiers around there, let's have a look at the reaction there. Few people nodding here and there. I know there are few very big passionate skiers in there. You know, we can have an hour conversation, just say the most beautiful places that you can ski in the Alps, and places that we quite happily share with the French, quite happily share with Austria, and you know, and Switzerland, and you know, it's just a beautiful setting. We cannot talk about North without talking about Milan, which is the sort of business heart of Italy. I will say, in my personal experience, one of those cities that are incredibly good to visit, but you know, they are the most international city inside Italy. You know, if you step into Milan, you step into a metropolis, and something that will remind you a sort of Italian version of London. And I always say that. I know it's controversial, I don't care. And I think is very different, quite more modern compared to other city. You can recognize the Duomo of Milan, just such a characteristic building on the picture in there. And then on the picture nearby, there is this very colorful Porticciolo, very famous in Cinque Terre, and it's such an iconic image of northern Italy. And I have to say, few days before setting up the event for tonight, we realized that our supplier was out of the Ligurian wine that we wanted to you to taste. And we started a frenzy research, myself, to find another supplier for a similar wine, but it looks like there's no more Ligurian wines of that sort in the UK until the new vintage, which shouldn't be that far away, I think, in the next month or so. Beautiful way to make wine. They call it the heroic method. And, you know, we're missing that, and it's a shame, and we replace it with an international variety. We just went on the opposite side. We can't talk the north of Italy without talking about the lakes, the area of the lakes. We got Lake Garda, Lake Diseo, Lake Como, Lake Maggiore, that forms a sort of lake area just in the middle between Lombardia and Veneto. Beautiful places to visit. I'm sure most of you probably been there. And there's such a characteristic place for wine itself. And we will see how the Veneto region can sort of get into the conversation. Verona, we have the Arena di Verona. I've been lucky enough years ago to have seen an entire opera in there. Again, amazing settings. Südtirol, we're going to talk about it. Up in the mountains, the Trentino Alto Adige, the Friuli Venezia Giulia, the Emilia Romagna are examples of regions of Italy in which there are inside two regions. So there is Trentino and Alto Adige, which is the Trento and Bolzano sort of division. There is the Friuli and the Venezia Giulia. We're going to talk about this with Marco in a second. And there is Emilia and Romagna. Now, with Emilia and Romagna, we decided to sort of divide it in two. Leave the Romagna for Central Italy next wine tasting. And today we're going to talk about Emilia. We need to be very careful, because if you get this mixed up with the locals, you can get into really big trouble. Because if you call a Romagnolo person Emiliano or a Friulano person Venezia Giulia, is trouble. No, I'm joking. It's not trouble. But, you know, they make you feel that there is a difference there. And then obviously the Emilia-Romagna flavors, and, you know, it's the region in which there are the most DOP in food. Is the region that made, you know, famous lasagne, tortellini, you know, the pasta fresca is a result of that. Let's not forget Parmigiano Reggiano, prosciutto di Parma. You know, I could really talk for hours and hours and hours. And I just didn't want to forget that. And I leave for the last but not least, Franciacorta, which again could be a day-long conversation about sparkling wine and metodo classico in Italy. And everybody who knows me amongst you, they know how passionate I am about Franciacorta. Is a fantastic wine region, a small microclimate itself. And I think high-quality Franciacorta can really sort of make their presence in a room together with champagne. Whoever knows me knows that. Unfortunately, we can't do any sparkling wine in this sort of format, because it would be very complicated to reseal it and deal with the pressure. So we're not gonna go there, but I thought it was worth a mention. You can have a look, obviously, on the website where we list many of them. Ima, I'm gonna pass you the microphone. You're gonna talk to us about some great variety that we cannot omit, but we need just to mention. And then I think we're gonna carry on and lift our first glass.
Yes, thank you everyone to be here today, and for your patience that you have to listen us and go through this hour with us. There is actually a question that is the first thing that I would like to do is to answer. They are asking, Dominic is asking, why the wines are called heroic, because you mentioned the Cinque Terre and the heroic wines. Well, everything that is heroic is because it's heroic the way they are making it, and the producer put a lot of effort in doing it. That's why. Because this kind of wine, they have been produced since long time, and they continue to be produced in a steep slope. So it's really difficult to get there, like a little terrazzamenti, you would say in Italy. So you do have a really difficult condition where you have to produce the wine. Can be for the heights as well. Sometimes this production is on higher, like 1,000 meters above the sea level, for example, or can be as well because they are on the coast, literally. So you have a kind of costiera. It's really difficult to produce wine there. They have to handpick like in the Costiera Amalfitana, can be in Cinque Terre is like this, or it can be as well in Valtellina, that is Lombardy, that is one of the zones that we cannot talk about today. Like in Valtellina, they do the Nebbiolo, Chiavennasca, for example. That's an idea. Yeah, we do have a lot of grapes that we cannot talk today, but we do have some of the characteristic traits that we can talk. We will divide the conversation between international grapes and local grapes as well. So we will have this evening a Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir, or Pinot Nero, said in the Italian way. And then we will have as well grapes like the Ribolla, that is obviously a local grapes. And we will have as well the Recioto, that is a blend of different grapes coming from Veneto, the most representative. So if we go on with the slide, Bruno, we see if we can talk about straight to the wine. What do you think? Yeah.
I think we should raise the glass first of all and have a sip, because we already been quite long in the presentation. So cheers, everyone. We start incredibly with a red today, a Pinot Noir. So that will help us out. We spoke about a land of mountains and seas, isn't it? Tyrrhenian to the west and Adriatic to the east. We spoke about the lakes, the hills and the plains, Pianura Padana, and also great cultural variety, many borders. We spoke about the borders and languages, ethnic minorities and disputed territories. Let's not forget that in the northern of Italy, both the First and Second World War found, their plan of action, and I don't think any population in Europe, well, definitely in Italy, suffer, the full force of the war, like Northern Italian, especially Northeastern Italian. And then all this sort of diversity, flavors, notes, also reflect in the winemaking. And, and even in few miles of distance, like very often happens in Italy, you get such a difference in flavors and styles.
Yeah, it's a really patchwork of culture, I would say. So you have different local language and the patchwork of terroir, I would say, in a French way, if you want to sum it.
Yeah, I allow you to say terroir, no problem at all. And what I usually like to make a point of is, if you have a look at Italy as a peninsula, so the old country, there is a sort of a rule of thumb that I usually mention is, as you go from the north to the south, even in the flavors of the local food, the traditional food, you have this sort of fresher, lighter tone in the north, that then as you go in the south, it becomes a little bit deeper, a little bit hotter, a little bit spicy, a little bit flavorsome. Not that one is better than the other, the two different styles, obviously, but that's the rule of thumb. I can see, wines made in the north more, how can I say, fresher, and the wine making in the south richer in the normal cause of fact. Then we know that winemaking makes the difference as well. But if you look at the main characteristic of the grape, this is what we look. Great. So again, we will not talk about Piemonte tonight, but let's talk about Südtirol. Südtirol, also known as Alto Adige in Italy, is very famous for the production of amazing white wines and the most elegant Pinot Nero. Would you agree, Ima?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the Pinot Nero is that grape that on the beginning is the word Pinot Nero stands for Pinot Noir. That is the French word for the grape. It's basically the same grape, but in that case, you have the opportunity to try the Pinot Nero made in Alto Adige is one of the finest parts. It starts actually the Pinot Nero to be cultivated in Lombardy and Piemonte first, and then they go to Alto Adige because the taste of that kind of wine didn't really match with the food and the idea of wine that in Lombardy and Piemonte they had. So what happened? The Pinot Noir, that usually is a grape that likes cold weather, decide to go to the Südtirol. So decide, okay, let's stay to Alto Adige and let's enjoy this cold weather that will let my thin skin be good. and will help the grape as well to develop a nice acidity, because the Pinot Noir is the kind of grape that everyone knows for the fruitiness of it, and especially for the high acidity and the gentle tannin. It's the kind of Pinot Noir that actually the kind of grape that you can say, okay, I will maybe sometimes it's better start with a Pinot Noir rather than a more powerful white wine, because you know that with the high acidity, it will clean up your mouth and stand up in a way. So the Pinot Noir is grown everywhere in the world. Obviously, let's say the premium version of the Pinot Noir is Burgundy and the Côte de Nuit, but you can find Pinot Noir in Margaret River in Australia, you can find in Oregon as well, in America, you can find in Tanzania. And the Pinot Noir is one of the grapes that you in Champagne they use in the blend of for making the champagne itself. So in that case, if you find on your label, for example, of Champagne Blanc de Noir, you will know that could be Pinot Noir as well, because it's one of that grape. In a way, the Pinot Noir is the kind of grape that, like Bruno say, enjoy the northern part of Italy more than the southern part, because obviously when you go down to the peninsula, you get a hotter weather, and that hotter weather really don't help the Pinot Noir because it starts to struggle in growth. So the Alto Adige slowly, thanks to different range of altitude that it has, it can reach more than 1,000 meters or above. So in that case, the cold weather helps the Pinot Noir to grow and gives a nice hint of everything that can be summed in the word elegant in the Pinot Noir itself. What do you think, Bruno?
Absolutely, yeah, I do agree. So let's, we go a little bit, all of these slides I'm gonna send to you anyway after, and I think we should just move to the wine. This is very technical about how many white wines and red wines you have, different grape varieties, Lagrein and Schiava, main local ones in the red. And we talk about altitude as well, and the effect of altitude on the freshness of the wine, which is great. But let's talk about Wilhelm Wall. It's a family that started making wine in 1869. They started growing, and then fifth generation winemakers now. The family helped to spread the culture of Alto Adige or Südtirol wines, producing very traditional wine in a modern key. There is always a conversation, especially in Italy, in which you find that the same wine in the same area is produced in a more classical way and in a more modern way. You know, obviously, the modern key of production, you know, is using technology much more, but also different way to actually work the fields. And I think is quite it's quite right to mention that you know, there are always very conservative way to make wine in the area, and there is always the novelty and different production. They're very committed on social sustainability. They also have growers that are contracted for them to deliver grapes to the company, so that they can integrate and complete the production of the family-owned fields. And we discussed very briefly last time. I'm just saying this for whoever wasn't here last evening, so sorry for repeating myself. That there has been this phenomenon for which, you know, from growers, the families became winemaker, because the shift of the generation, we had younger people inside the family saying to the dads and mom, hey, you know, why are we selling our grapes to the company? Let's do our own wine. And in here we go an example of how the company is helping actually growers that are not really interested in make their own wine. And by doing so, they're very sustainable socially, because they support the majority of the actual town. Tramin is a town that is based on making wine, not only from the Val family, but from another 2 or 3 different families. And all the producers of wine around, all the owners on the land, obviously they planted grapes. And I think is a great way to sort of help the tradition and get things going, making sure that everybody gets a fair cut. Let's go for the notes, Iman. Looking forward to this.
It's definitely a fresh style of Pinot Noir, really fruity. does have a lovely strawberry on the notes, and you can feel a little bit of spiciness that can be coming maybe from the oak as they use for the fermentation. It's a really, I would say, easy drinking style of Pinot Noir, but a good quality. Don't get me wrong. Just because it's so easy that we already finished it, actually.
Here it is. I don't know if you can see it on the screen.
Yeah, Bruno, there is a question for you.
Yeah.
Thomas is asking if there is a relationship with Elena Walsh.
There is, yes, there is a relationship with Elena Walch. Correct.
Wow.
I think Wilhelm was Elena's father's name, and they decided to do two lines in which Helena was very involved in the making and style on one of the brands, and Wilhelm Walch wants to be a sort of more popular and approachable side of the story. And I think marketing-wise, they did exceptionally well. But you can feel the quality going from the top producer of Elena Walsh down to the baseline of Wilhelm Walch. We have one of the most popular wine that we sell, and we have been selling for the last 5 years, is the next down from this version of Blauburgunder, which is the Prendo. And the Prendo is a Pinot Noir that you can buy for, I think, is around 15 quid. And you know, the ratio of quality and price is stunning. Really good. And if I'm not wrong, you presented the Pinot Grigio from Prendo as well not long ago in your Instagram feed.
Yes, I did. Did you it for a girls' wine chat? That is a live chat that I have with women around the world. And yeah, it was a really approachable style of Pinot Grigio. Yes, in that moment, the question was about what's the idea of the English people about Italian wine, no? And I think the Pinot Grigio Prendo literally make the point in that way.
Ooh, fantastic! I like it, and I think we done absolutely well to make a start with it. Even if you usually would expect to go through the white first, but hold on, because the white are gonna reserve lots of surprises. And I like to make some jokes, like everybody knows already, who knows me already. I make jokes during my presentation. And I wanted to tell you a very quick story about Pinot Noir and what happened to me when I started this business here in London more than 10 years ago. I thought I knew a lot, but I received a delivery from a supplier that was supposed to deliver some Pinot Noir. And then a case with Blauburgunder came up into the shop. So I called the supplier saying, you know, Max, I think you sent me the wrong wine because, you know, I ordered Pinot Noir from this producer, but you sent me Blauburgunder. I don't think of being so embarrassed in my life not to know the difference, you know, to know that, you know, Blauburgunder and Pinot Nero means the same thing. So I just thought that was funny, and making a big fun of myself is always good, because especially in the sommelier sort of, there are things that we say and do that are absolutely funny. This is one of them. So yeah, when you see Blauburgunder, Pinot Nero, because as we said, the culture, the Austrian culture, the Germanic culture, and the Italian culture, they meet in Südtirol, and the ethnic minority, they call it, is definitely no minority, because you know they speak German in there, and they're absolutely fabulous people, and I do love it, and I think diversity makes for absolute quality, and I love it, and we should go and talk about Piacenza. Right. Before we taste this wine, I got another joke. Before, has anybody got a helmet before we taste this wine? Because this wine is, you know, is quite, yeah. Please taste with grace. Taste a little bit at a time, because it's a powerful product, and we couldn't get away with it without doing a little bit of Chardonnay, and we'll explain why in a bit. And jokes aside, yes, I'm gonna talk to you about Piacenza, call it Piacentini. is in Emilia, as you see, is the north part of Emilia-Romagna, and the wine that we're going to have next week is going to be from the southern one, just south of Forlì. Is borderline between Liguria, Piemonte, and Lombardia. So the other three regions that are near to Piacenza. And I have to say, I had to go and check as well, just to make sure, because I get very confused about this sort of borderline town. And the area is very famous for a wine called Gutturnio that can be sparkling or still, and usually a blend of two grapes that are Croatina and Bonarda, which are typical of Oltre Pavese, sitting just inside the Piedmont region, just a few miles on the north there. And is also vocated for amazing international varieties expression, like, as we see now, the Chardonnay. I pass the ball to Ima to talk about Luretta, Céline Dlarmari.
Yes, the Chardonnay. Let's talk about first the Chardonnay as grape. It's the kind of grape that I like to describe like neutral grape, because it's the grape that can grow basically everywhere, but every place the Chardonnay choose, so having grow, it changes shapes, because it decides to be a little bit more elegant, or decide to be a little bit more rich. And as well, when they use oak, or if they do a kind of different winemaking, so they can use as well lees during the fermentation or malolactic fermentation, you can have a different style of Chardonnay as well. For an idea more specific, again, the premium Chardonnay, when you think about Chardonnay, is a must to think about as well Burgundy and Côte de Beaune. So everything that is Chassagne-Montrachet, or it can be as well Pouligny-Montrachet, Meursault, and as well Chablis. But already in these 2 or 3 names that I gave to you, well, you can see the difference between the style of wine that you are making, because how the Chardonnay can express. Like you can have a Chablis because it's a colder weather, you have a fresher expression of Chardonnay, while when you have a different expression from Meursault as well. So a richer style with the use of lees as well, and the use of oak especially. And in this class, you do have the kind of international idea that of the Chardonnay there is around. Because as well, when you talk about Chardonnay, the people get confused if you tell them, oh, you know, Chablis and Chardonnay are the same grape. They already look at you like, what you're telling me, because the Chardonnay that the people is used to is the Chardonnay that in this moment you have in your glass. That is a bold, really nice Chardonnay, almost medium to full body, with a lot of vanilla on your nose, besides the peach that you can find. And even if there are some citrus notes in this wine, the majority of it is coming from the winemaking process, not necessarily from the idea and the characteristic typical of the grape itself. Because the typical characteristic of the Chardonnay is actually the characteristic to the, okay, do of myself everything you want, I will give you whatever you ask me. That's what the Chardonnay say. It's a kind of dream grape for every wine producer. As you can see, the Chardonnay, it grows everywhere. So you have Chardonnay in Burgundy, you have Chardonnay in Italy, you have Chardonnay in America, you have Chardonnay in South Africa, you have Chardonnay everywhere. If people take the Chardonnay and try to shape it, the shape that Luretta gives to this Chardonnay from Colli Piacentini, as I said, is a rich style of Chardonnay in this way. They use for 9 months new oak, so the flavor of the oak and the spiciness that's coming from there is really, really big. Agree? What is Barricato style?
Okay.
There is a question.
Before we get there is a question just before then. I've been asked to explain again about the denominations in Italy, especially the DOC and DOCG that can be confusing if you don't know about Italian wine or you know Italian, because you probably know a little bit better. So there are usually some bands that you find on the bottle. I don't know if you can see. And if the band is blue, the product is a DOC, which is a denomination of origin controlled. And if it's DOCG, and it's the denomination of origin controlled and guaranteed. And the difference is the disciplinary. There is a book of rules that all the producers need to obey by to be able to be given the denomination. either DOC or DOCG. There are other denominations, but usually when you go and have a look at your wines, if you see the DOC and DOCG, they are the highest denomination that you have in Italy. We learned last time that there were some rebels producers that didn't want to have a denomination because they wanted to be different and they wanted to do whatever they wanted with their wine. And that's the revolution that started in Toscana, especially in the zone of Chianti, Super Toscan. And this is in a nutshell. It doesn't necessarily guarantee you that the wine you're gonna like, but is let's say an indication that all the basic rules of that particular brand have been followed. And when I say brand, for example, the DOC, the Pinot Noir, is a DOC from Alto Adige in the Pinot Nero expression. So it's Pinot Nero, Alto Adige, DOC. And there are hundreds of DOC nowadays in Italy, and hundreds of DOCG as well. And there are more and more coming every year. So just a seal of quality. And Barricato style. Do you want to answer to that one from the name Barrique in France?
Well, I guess Barricato is referred to the use of barrique. That is a special format used in France as a 200 to 225 liters. Is basically an oak, but it's made in a small shape. So in that case, you get more contact with wine, between the wine and the wood. So in this way, the quantity of flavor that you get from the oak is higher if you use a bigger oak. That's why when you say Barricato, you can find something that has more vanilla on the notes, or a little bit of more tannin, but tannin that's coming from the woods. So in that case, when you have more powerful, you do have it from the shape and the dimension of the same oak. So bigger is the oak, less is the contact with the wood, less is the quantity of flavor that is coming out from the wood in the wine. Smaller is, so barrique is the wood, that barrique is the smallest one. In that case, it's more contact with wine, so more flavor that comes out from the wood. In this case as well, is used a barrique that is new barrique, so new oak. In this case, if you have new oak, that means the flavor of the quantity in the oak itself and the quantity of flavor that is coming out to the wood, to the wine, is higher, because obviously it's new.
Obviously. Well, I see quite a lot of pleased faces around there, and that was our objective. It's a very sort of international style from Italian producers, and we like this sort of exercise to be about what you find in the area, not necessarily about how big and good and how we do things so uniquely, perfectly, because that obviously is not the case. I like, international interpretation of Italian style, and I think it's great. And obviously, the way of mimicking the French producer Chardonnay is obvious. So much so that I was noticing, and we discussed about that yesterday with Emma. In 2018, this particular vintage, the 2016, won a silver medal in the Chardonnay du Monde competition in France. So I think it goes a long way to explain that, there are notable examples internationally of a style that definitely is not typical of Italy, but it can be interpreted in there. And I'm gonna just invite our special guest Marco to unmute himself and to say hi, if he's still there. Probably bored him to death talking about Chardonnay.
Hi Bruno.
Ciao Marco, ben trovato, welcome, how are you?
I'm fine. Hello everybody, good evening guys. And I'm happy to be with you this evening. Thank you, Bruno.
An absolute pleasure to have you, Marco. Our is a relation that is going on for quite a few years. I was counting our first conversation in regards to opening a crazy Italian wine shop in London is dating more than 10 years ago. It's quite outstanding. Like, yeah, it's quite outstanding. Like, nor you or I have aged a bit. So obviously we're drinking good wine. we're going to talk about Venezia Giulia. We're going to talk about Collio, especially. We're not getting offended when you call us Friulani, but obviously Venezia Giulia is a different region itself. And the region of Collio inside Venezia Giulia is a curve of bright and sunny hills on the borderline with Slovenia. You can see from Marco's estate, Slovenia is like, you can throw a stone into Slovenia, and in few years ago you could have been prosecuted for that as well. I think they're much easier now. Yes, there is the town of Prepot on the north, and then in the west, Cormons and Gorizia, and this is the denomination of Collio. The grapes inside Collio, Malvasia, Ribolla Gialla that we're going to have today, Friulano, formerly known as Tokai Friulano, and Piccolita, sweet aromatic grape, and also international varieties such Pinot Grigio, Chardonnay, Pinot Bianco, Turgau, Riesling, Sauvignon, and Traminer, all approved to be in the Collio area. I know it's impossible to explain Collio so quickly, and we're already running late, but you tell us. I'm gonna pass you the microphone, and you tell us about your region, your family, your estate, and your wines. You go 11 minutes and 35 seconds. Go.
Yeah, I hope that's I do the job. So just few words about my family name and the winery. I'm the fifth generation that working in a wine business and winery with my brother Boris and with the boss, my father Silvan. He started bottling in 1956 and was one of the founders of the Collio DOC denomination, and one of the first wineries, private wineries, that start working after the Second World War in Friuli, Venezia Giulia region. The Collio means hills, is the hilly part of Friuli, Venezia Giulia region. And just Bruno tell you, we are really the eastern part, northeastern part of Italy. It's something between the North Alps and the Adriatic Sea and the border with Slovenia. And this is very important thing for the wine producer because the kind of soil, kind of climate that we have in the region, the influence of mountain give us and provide us a very beautiful cold wind in the summer. This is very important for crispy wines, and the influence of the Adriatic Sea that provide a mild climate. That means this is one of the matters because Collio is much more known for the whites like reds. This is that's part of the climate. The second is the part of the story. Venezia Giulia was under Austro-Hungarian Empire for 400 years. That means a high influence of German agronomy and culture in viticulture. That means that we have a lot of different grades inside the DOC, Collio, but today quite all producers are focused on indigenous grapes. That means Friulano, Ribolla Gialla, and Malvasia. For international grapes, Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. Of course, the Pinot Grigio is in the all northeastern part of the Italy, but really at home in the hilly area, Collio Orientali. And then just a few reds, but not so focused like Merlot and Refosco. But I'm so happy today that I can talk about our piece of heart, that's our story, and it is Ribolla Gialla. Ribolla Gialla is the name of the grape. Giallo means yellow, and it's written on the label Ribolla Gialla because exists 3 different kinds of Ribolla: Ribolla Gialla, Ribolla Nera, and Ribolla Verde. Ribolla Verde is not a good grape to do wine.
Verde is green, Nera is black, and Gialla is yellow. And
Ribolla Nera, if this wine became the name Schioppettino, and Ribolla Gialla, it's in front of you, it's the yellow Ribolla, and it's the wine that we test together today. Ribolla Gialla is really one of our indigenous oldest grapes in the Collio Hiri area, and is very important grape for Oslavia village. Oslavia is a very small village where we are located on the top of the hill, the eastern part of the Collio, direct on the border between the river is also the Alps and the border with Slovenia. And Oslavia is not only a place where grow the grapes, but it is a small village with a very beautiful winemaking philosophy about Ribolla Gialla. Oslavia is the place where are born in Italy all orange wine. That means wine, they are fermented with spontaneous fermentation, without selected yeast, without sulfites, without any ads, without any influences of the man, in very spontaneous, natural way, in contact, skin and juice.
So sorry, Marco, just a second. So to make it super simple and easy to everybody, you take the grape, you collect them obviously by hand because the denomination wants that. You collect them and then they go.
For me, it's obvious that it's hand picked. I forget that's it. And
you need to mention it.
Yeah, orange wine or vini macerati. That means that it's produced like a red. This means fermented.
You leave the skin
together. You have to imagine picked grapes, open wooden barrel. We put inside the barrel grapes, juice and skin, and in very natural way, spontaneous start the fermentation. The works yeast and bacters together, because without sulfites, in very natural way, works all organized inside the juice. And the matter of Ribolla Gialla is the richness of the skin. Ribolla Gialla have a very important big skin, that means a lot of substance inside. And so during this kind of fermentation, we have the opportunity to catch from the skin a lot of phenolic notes, like a red.
Yeah, and obviously the presence of tannins, you know, all the elements inside the skin that sort of produce this grippy element on your gums, on your teeth.
It's correct. It's not correct to talk about the tannin. It's a tannin perception, because whites don't have any tannins. They are polyphenolic, but it's tannic perception that is correct. And the matter is really that if we catch after the fermentation so many tannin, polyphenolic notes from the skin, like a red, this kind of wine take a lot of time to spend inside the barrel to manage this polyphenolic perception, this tannic perception. This is normally all orange wine, they are a little aged because they need to spend inside a big wooden barrel for many, many years. In terms of barrels, sometimes people do mistake. Orange wine means amphoras. It's not correct. Sometimes they are fermented in amphoras for some producer, sometimes in wooden barrels. Orange means that it's really a spontaneous fermentation in very natural way in contact with skin. And now we know minimum 1 month in contact with skin. There are new rules.
Wow. We already have the people talking, you know, he's already one of the favorites. Here we go. Oh, Anna. Yeah, I think you got quite a lot of fans here, Marco. And what I like to say is, you know, it's such a unique thing, because you cannot say, you know, well, this white wine, it reminds me a little bit of, and that red wine reminds me a little bit of, but this is quite an identity on its own. And I know you spend so much time of your own to talk about Ribolla Gialla. And, you know, this sort of method of making white wines, how did it come about? It's just traditional? You just, you were sitting down, enjoying the sun and the beautiful food, and you forgot that you have the wine sitting on his skin for 26 days. How did it happen?
Yeah, it sounds so, but it's not really so. It's part of our tradition because our grandfathers working and making the wine with Ribolla Gialla grape in contact with the skin. But there was before 50s, and the matter was just that need to press with hand presses the grape of Ribolla Gialla, and it was quite impossible. And this is the matter they choosing to ferment it first in open wooden barrel, the Ribolla Gialla, then put the press to finish and to ferment the wine. Of course,
it was a necessity at the end of the day.
Of course, in this very poor time, the quality of this job was not so good, not so elegant. And then at the end, the wine was not so interesting like today, with very, very heavy volatile acidity and probably, yes, some yeast inside and some defects. And the modern technology in 50s and 60s that came from Veneto, from the Istituto Enologico di Conegliano, changed completely the mood of winemaking in Collio. But in 90s, we go back to old tradition, but with good wood and of course, with the different kind of knowledge. And of course, we have not the chance to manage the fermentation in spontaneous way, but the knowledge of many vintages and of very, very good grapes inside the vineyard with very good ripeness help us with this natural way of fermentation to catch only the goodness, the good things.
It's absolutely amazing, and I'm sure all of you enjoy. I will ask you personally about food matching, because again, we slipped food matching out of the description of the other wines. We're going to get back to that in a second with Ima. What do you pair these with? He seems quite to be an all-rounder, isn't it? You could go through a meal quite easily with Ribolla only. Don't you agree?
You mean
so the structure, yeah, I'm still talking to you, Marco. The structure of the wine will tell me that you could match food.
The wine, there are two things that are very important. Open the bottle like a rat a little before you had food, and then don't serve chili cold.
Not too cold, not too cold. Yeah.
Not too cold, like a rat, a young rat. And for food, we have so beautiful power, beautiful acidity, and quite a good quantity of phenolic notes. This means that this wine really loves two very important things. Some fatness, all fried could be fish, meat, I really love fried things. And then if we go a little Asian spicy food, they pair very well with this acidity and the tannin. Raw fish like Japanese sushi with this beautiful tasty meat of the fish works well with this kind of phenolic notes. And if we are talking about our local food, Boretola Garesiana or Chardonnay Fritti, that's the best way to pair with this wine.
We should have a separate event just to explain what these two things are. Very, very good. Marco, the question that we ask all our special guests, of course, thank you for being with us tonight. Can we come
to be special?
Can we come to you? Can we organize a little trip, all of us, and come and visit you, Silvan, Boris, Nicola, all the family, and stay with you for a lunch and an afternoon under the sun, and then go with your father in the cellar? Because your father doesn't want you to taste the wines that are in commerce now. He wants to come to the cellar when there are the proper wines he makes.
You are welcome.
That rubbish.
You are welcome every time. You know that it's quite heavy, but meet all of us 3-generation guys. But yeah, you are welcome every time.
Fantastic. So that's another date in the diary, everyone. We thank Marco. There are any questions for him before we move on? What about cheese? John is asking. How would you pair that with cheese? Which sort of cheese?
Cheese, just not the blue, because we have some notes inside the wine. They are very elegant, like green tea, some mandarin candies. and many cheeses works well with the wine. The blue cheese is not botrytis and then works not so well.
Okay, so stay away from the gorgonzola when you have this wine, and otherwise it's pretty good to eat. Yeah, fat, very good with this wine. He must quite rightly say it cuts through very, very nicely. If you think of any other question, I'm sure Marco is going to stay with us a little bit more. We have a little interaction at the end, but we just wanted to pass on and talk about our next subject, which is quite a subject, I have to say, and we're not going to go that far from Marco, and we are going to Veneto, which is a wine-making region known mainly for two things, which are the Amarones and the Prosecco, which has been probably one of the most incredible wine phenomenon in the last few decades. The way that the production and the popularity of the product really took on worldwide, and especially in the UK, is like incredible. And I think we should write marketing books about it and how did they achieve these. 3 years ago, for the first time, there was more Prosecco sold quantity-wise in the world than Champagne for the first time, and I think it stayed there. Of course, we don't talk about 2020 as a statistic example. Veneto, we still northeast, plenty of microclimates. I think Lago di Garda, I think the mountains, natural park, forests, and incredibly lovely antique villages. Let's not forget Venezia itself. And Venezia, like Rome, is one of those testimony for which there are so many people coming and visit, that there was a great request for high yields and cheap wine to be sold to the tourists. So all the area around it is sort of geared up to satisfy a need. And in Rome, you can see these as well, quite obviously. And in Florence, they didn't need to because it was there before the explosion of the tourism in there. But that's quite nicely. And then obviously, as everything, quality sort of took on. And things go better on that sort of aspect. And compared to other main winemaking region like Piedmont, Tuscany, and the whole agglomerate, the wine production areas in Veneto are quite smaller compared to them, but yet they produce the majority, an amount of wine that is much superior. The territory has diversity in climate, as I said, and there are volcanic soil, hilly and flat areas, which produce many different wine styles. We've got Soave in there, which is one of the great example. And the wine style can range from really light and drinkable to extremely full body and intense. Since the mid-16th century, I read in the notes, Treviso, Vicenza, and obviously the Valpolicella area started producing together the grapes Corvina, Rondinella, and Molinara, which gave then rise to the Bardolino denomination first, and then to the great red wines of Valpolicella after. And that includes Amarone, which is sort of part of the family of the wine we're going to taste today, which is il Recioto della Valpolicella DOCG, La Collina dei Ciliegi. So this is their bottle. This is a winery that is being acquired by a financial company. So it's not traditionally a producer of many generations of wine. We're going to have a look at a producer that came into the area, is one of the last people coming into the area. But I have to say they've done it in a very good way, because the product is incredibly good. And I always remember talking about them with other Amarones producer, more historical producer of Amarone, and there where they had their opinion, let's say like that. But I stuck with them for many years, and I have to say, with great results. One of the things that the Collina dei Ciliegi is doing, for example, if anybody is interested, is they sell the old barrel of Amarone. You can have your name on the label, and it's something very sort of different from all the other Amarone producer, where the name of the producer is the law, but they following a marketing move that is very up and coming in the whiskey world nowadays, in which you can buy your own barrel of whiskey and get your names on it and then consume it at your leisure. Great idea. Ima, we need to get a barrel of that. But let's talk a bit about the pyramid of Valpolicella, from Classico to Amarone, because I think consumer-wise, this is probably one of the most important things to know about the area and the production.
Yes. Well, that is not the easiest topic to talk about. I mean,
that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, after the Barrique, the Chardonnay, and the wood influence, I think the pyramid of the Amarone and the Valpolicella in general, it's really difficult. But I will try to be simple enough and clear. So bear with me. In Valpolicella, they have 3 or 4 main grapes in this way. So you have Corvina, Corvinone, Molinara, and Rondinella. All of these grapes, they are part of the blend that can be made of wine from Valpolicella. In Valpolicella, you can recognize the Valpolicella Classico, that is the wine made from the oldest area. Then you can recognize the Valpolicella Superiore, so it's the wine that have an highest level of alcohol in it, compared to a normal Valpolicella. Both of them, they have a fresher style of Valpolicella. So the grapes are made as any other red wine. So you take the grape when the grapes are ripe enough. So you take it, you press it, you make the wine. It's really simple. What it makes the difference is Classico is the oldest area. Superiore is because on the end of the fermentation, the alcohol content in it is higher than the normal content that would be in the normal denomination. After that, we have the Valpolicella Ripasso. When it comes to Ripasso, Amarone, and Recioto, the first thing that we should remind us that is coming from the addition of the use of what is the grapes made from appassimento. The appassimento is the method where in the vineyard, yeah, exactly. Thanks, Bruno.
No problem.
The grapes are picked. After the grapes are picked, they put it on gratici or they put it hanging on a wall, and they make the grape dry. When the grapes dry, what happens? That all the sugar in the grapes becomes to be higher in level, and the water is become slowly to dry. So you have a lower acidity and higher sugar in the grape. When you have higher sugar, it can be translated in 2 ways. So I mean in one way actually, higher level of alcohol. If you want a lower level of alcohol, you simply stop the fermentation and you get a sweet wine. So in this
residual
way,
sugar, you get residual.
Yeah, a residual sugar in this way. So if you go back to the pyramid now, I hope if you have any question about this topic, please do it, because it's not easy, and I'm trying to find the simplest way to explain it, as I would explain to Paolo actually. So Paolo, if you understand, let me know.
I will write everything. No
Okay. So when it comes to Ripasso, here we go. We have the Valpolicella, that is the wine made in the young full expression of the wine itself, that are the same grapes. So we have Corvina and Molinara and Rondinella Corvinore. That in this way, why the more wine regions? Anyway, we have a normal wine. After that, the wine is ripassato. So they use.
It goes through again.
Yeah, it goes through again on dried grapes that are the one used for make the Amarone. So what is happened? The dried grapes that are obviously richer, but still have a sugar content in it, they kind of develop a second fermentation. This second fermentation develops more flavors in the wines, and yet it gives more alcohol. So you have higher alcohol and more flavor than the Valpolicella Superiore, but less than the Amarone della Valpolicella.
A middle way between the big boy and the little brother.
Yeah, and then we go.
Middle sibling.
Yeah, and then we go to Amarone della Valpolicella. Well, Amarone di Valpolicella is the dried version of the Recioto della Valpolicella, because both of them, they are made in the same way. So they take the dry grapes on the gradici or on they take it, they press it, and then the fermentation starts, and then the wine starts to be made. If they stop the fermentation before all the sugar is evolved, is transformed in alcohol, well, you get recioto. If you don't stop the fermentation, you have the Amarone, because the yeast will transform all the sugar in the wine, in the grape juice and wine. So, well, you will have a dry wine. Is that clear?
Absolutely. And I think it's incredibly fascinating. Great explanation for us geeks. With Danielle, part of the geeky side of the story. I've got a question from Angus is, why don't more wine regions dry their grapes?
Well,
the answer is, they do. Quite a lot of regions. And what I was saying before, with joking with Marco, is when things happen by chance. It looks, it looks like in many regions, if I think about all the passiti in the southern Italy, especially in Sicily, in the islands, Pantelleria, what they do instead of doing it on graticci in storage room, usually near to the ceiling of the warehouses, they do it in the sun, which is quite a faster process. And I always have in my mind that the first one that did this, they actually forgot the grapes there. I don't know why, but for me to get to this point is like this sort of accidental happening, is somebody left it there and they realized that obviously they became raisin, they vinified anyway, etc. I'm sure this is not the case, but I like to fantasize about this, because the same way we fantasize about how beer came about, because probably somebody left the soup out in the sun and it just got fermented. But this is, we can say that about any kind of fermentation. The answer short to this is many other reasons are doing various level of Passimento wine, and it's styles that get recognized everywhere. We tried with Ima a Barbera from Piemonte. They use a similar method that they dry the thing. If you go in the south, from Puglia to Sicily, you find lots of producers that are having, a section of their wine especially done for a Passimento, especially for markets like the United States, China nowadays, etc. So for introducing products that are higher in sugar, and that's it really. Did you want to add something up, Ima?
Yeah, basically when they dry the grapes, in the majority of the case, they try to make sweet wine. But it's a unique case of the Amarone that started the idea that dried grapes can give more a kind of jammy flavor of wine that's really enjoyable but still dry. So the people that doesn't like the sweet wine, they can actually enjoy the same flavor but without sugar. Travaglini, Gattinara, they do Il Sogno, but the problem with the dried grapes they cost a lot because obviously the yields is less, so they have for make this kind of wine is really expensive, especially if they leave the grape on the trees, like it can be in Pantelleria or in Sicily or in other part of the world. It's really a kind of big effort for the producer. So when you see that a sweet wine costs more and the bottle is smaller, don't get a prejudice in it, because actually the effort to make this wine is 10 times higher than a normal wine that they used to make. So even if in a region like Veneto, they produce a lot of wines, and all around the world is known for the good balance that you have between the quality and the price of the wine that you get from Veneto. Well, in that case, if you have to spend a little bit more money for the Amarone and the Recioto, it's for this reason. But still, they create the ripasso for help you go through this process as well. So they use again the same grape to make another wine. So there is always a reason when it comes to the wine world between the idea of making the wine and why that process is making then why, for which reason, no? So the Amarone is beautiful, the Recioto is beautiful for this point of view, at least for me. So when you buy wines that are sweet, this is why they cost them much, because obviously to put the grapes on the graticci, or to hang them on a wall, or to leave it on a tree, it costs a lot of effort.
Of course. Marco,
Hey,
have you got in plan to do any Passito wines yourself?
you have to know that
your father must have thought about it.
Yeah, we do the picolit.
Okay.
Our dessert, the sweet wine. That's spend a few months on Graticci. And but you have to know that Ribolla di Uslavia, the lily spent it's a very late harvest. That means the start a little drying the grapes inside the vineyard.
Naturally, yeah.
It's part of the process. It's not the same process, of course.
Okay, good. So one more reason to visit you very soon. And with this, I think we complete. What do we think about this wine? It's incredible, isn't it? Because you think it's sweet, and then after a few sips of it, you sort of realize that the acidity is cutting through very nicely, and it makes for a great meditation wine, as we say. So wine that gets drunk by itself as well, and not only paired with food. However, if you have any of that gorgonzola left in the fridge that didn't go well with Marco's wine, I think it really could go with this. And that is my pairing for this wine. Should we talk about pairing, Ima? About the Pinot Nero and the Chardonnay that we had before?
Yes, I think we can figure the step of today from the Pinot Noir to the Chardonnay, then the Ribolla, and then on the end to the Recioto as literally a menu. So you have like for the aperitif, I would have the Pinot Nero, so like a nice charcuterie, but not too heavy, something that is not too much aged, really, really nice. As well, a little tartare, if it is, or a carpaccio, or manzo, so beef. But then when it goes to the Chardonnay, well, you need the helmet in this case, really.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
You need a rich, you actually...
Beef bourguignon! Allez, bleu!
Yeah, if you would be in Clarigis, I would say chicken pie, for example. That would be good. There is cream enough in that to pair with the cream that you can find in this wine. If you go to the Ribolla, well, Marco already explained it himself. That is quite a not easy pairing, but flexible pairing as well. So it's really lovely if you would have it on the end of the meal with the cheese, for example. And then you can pair with your Borinato, yes, the Recioto. But the Recioto, if you have a little bit of dark chocolate as well, I would like to have that, to be honest, because the sweetness in the wine, yes, is cut through the acidity, but it would be nice to have a little bit of bitterness as well that will help me to go through the sweetness. I mean, it has been a tough tasting today between the Chardonnay, the Ribolla, the Pinot Noir, and the Recioto.
We welcome any tough test, and I'm sure that this is quite a different tasting, I have to say, to describe what is the north of Italy, because we really went from one extreme to the other. We just sort of swirled everybody around an array of flavors that is definitely not common. We got a few comments. Let's have a look. It looks like Christmas pudding on the nose. Fantastic, yeah. Great for Christmas. I think Harvey's needs to get ready for that. I like that. Yeah, I get the reference to light port. He's like a sort of because yeah, I get the reference there.
Maybe a tony port,
together,
yeah.
but the final result. Mention of Picolit. Somebody did it. See? Oh, struggling to decide on my Sir Tom of these wines. What a lovely thing to say. Sir Tom, who passed yesterday, was it? An icon. I don't know, Marco, if you got the news in Italy about that. This great man that starting from doing a round of his garden in a Zimmer frame, he reached astronomical numbers. I think 30 odd million in charity for the NHS during the COVID emergency. And very sadly passed away at the age of 100 yesterday. And I think at 6 o'clock, there's been a big street club for him, at which we participate. And what a wonderful occasion to raise the glass to Captain Sir Tom Moore, who really did great for our spirits. Not only because he obviously fought for the country in the Second World War, and he must have seen a lot, but the things that he's done in his last year of his life is incredible. I love the fact that the Sir Tom is now synonym for the best of the best of the best. Who's the Sir Tom of this wine? Very difficult, but we're going to vote in a second in that very silly exercise that we always do, in which we're just going to vote the best in short. I think I think you can tell that the Recciotto's done the job on me. We go on the last team. Very interesting selection. Very good. Very difficult. Any other question, anybody, before I stop the recording and I make all of these events private so we can get all our microphone on, and anybody who wants to stay or with us can stay and can vote the best in show. If there are no any other question, I'm going to stop the recording now.